For over 60 years, one of Hollywood's greatest legends has kept a secret close to her heart. A story about a man who captivated audiences, yet struggled behind the scenes. A tale of admiration mixed with concern, of professional respect shadowed by personal worry. Now, at 91 years old, Sophia Loren, the woman who conquered Hollywood, won an Oscar, and became an icon of beauty and grace, has finally decided to break her silence about George Peppard. What made her wait so long? What memories has she been holding on to all these years? And what does her story reveal about one of Hollywood's most complex and misunderstood actors? This is a story of two legends whose paths crossed at the height of fame, and the profound understanding that existed between them. An understanding that Sophia has carried with her all this time. Sophia Loren was born as Sophia Villani Ciccone on September 20, 1934, in Rome, Italy. She spent her childhood in Pozzuoli, a poor town close to Naples. Her early years were filled with difficulties and hardship. She lived through World War II as a child, often hiding during bombing raids and going hungry. The war left deep scars on young Sophia and her family. Food was scarce, and survival was a daily struggle. Yet even in those dark times, something special was growing within her, a determination that would not be broken by circumstances. Even with these struggles, young Sophia had remarkable beauty and a strong spirit. She was a girl who imagined a life beyond her difficult surroundings, looking toward the future and hoping to leave behind the difficult times of post-war Italy. Those experiences of hunger, fear, and survival would inform every emotional performance she would later give on screen, bringing an authenticity that audiences could feel in their hearts. Her journey to fame started simply, when she was 15 years old and entered a beauty contest in her area. Film producer Carlo Ponti noticed her captivating presence at this contest, and he would change her life forever. He recognized more than just her good looks. He also saw her intelligence, kindness, and natural charm. With Ponti's help, Sophia started getting small parts in films, slowly changing from a timid, thin girl into a confident and fascinating actress. Their work relationship quickly turned into a deep love, and even though they faced many challenges, including legal problems and social judgment, they eventually married and stayed devoted to each other for over 50 years until Ponti died in 2007. Sophia Loren's climb to worldwide fame happened quickly. She had her big break in the 1950s when she appeared in Italian movies like Aida in 1953 and The Gold of Naples in 1954. Her genuine talent and emotional performances amazed audiences. Her skill in showing deep feelings through her expressions and movements set her apart from other actresses of her time. When she moved to Hollywood, it was the start of a new chapter. She became famous around the world, acting with some of the biggest names in film history, including Cary Grant, Frank Sinatra, Clark Gable, and Marcello Mastroianni. In 1961, her incredible performance in Two Women, directed by Vittorio De Sica, won her the Academy Award for Best Actress. This was a historic moment. She became the first actor to win an Oscar for acting in a non-English language film, and she established herself as one of the world's most respected actresses. Her role as Chesida, a mother trying to keep her daughter safe during war, showed an emotional power that went beyond language. This performance is still considered one of the most moving portrayals of human pain and a mother's love ever filmed. Sophia had channeled her own wartime experiences into this role, drawing from memories of her own mother's fierce protection during those dangerous years.
During the 1960s and 1970s, Loren remained a major star in both European and American films. She brought style, humor, and appeal to her parts in movies like Marriage Italian Style, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, and Arabesque. Her work with Marcello Mastroianni became famous. Together, they created unforgettable on-screen chemistry that combined romance, humor, and real warmth. Loren had a powerful presence. She carried herself with grace and strength, always staying true to herself despite the pressures of fame. In an industry that often tried to mold actors into something they weren't, Sophia Loren remained authentically herself, proud of her Italian roots, her natural beauty, and her earthy, genuine personality. As time went on, Loren kept inspiring new generations of artists and viewers. Her more recent performances in films like Nine in 2009 and The Life Ahead in 2020 showed that her talent and emotional range were still as strong as ever. In The Life Ahead, directed by her son Eduardo Ponti, Loren gave a deeply touching performance as Madame Rosa, a Holocaust survivor taking care of orphaned children, a role that perfectly showed her lifelong ability to express strength through vulnerability. Sophia Loren's romantic life has always been closely connected to Carlo Ponti Sr., the respected Italian film producer who was important to both her personal happiness and her legendary career. Their relationship was one of the most interesting and lasting love stories in international cinema history, a story of deep love, creative partnership, and going against social rules. However, their road to marriage was full of challenges. Carlo Ponti was still legally married to his first wife, Giuliana Fiastri, and Italy's tough divorce laws at that time made it almost impossible for him to get a legal separation without facing moral and religious criticism. Despite the legal problems, Sophia and Carlo's commitment to each other only grew stronger. In 1957, they married through a proxy ceremony in Mexico, with lawyers standing in for them during the wedding, a decision that created a scandal in Italy where the marriage wasn't recognized. This marriage was later annulled in 1962 to avoid bigamy charges, but the annulment didn't end their relationship. Instead, it made their determination to stay together even stronger. Their love story eventually won over all difficulties. In 1966, after years of legal and personal struggles, Carlo Ponti finally became a French citizen, which let him divorce his first wife and legally marry Sophia Loren again, this time in Paris. This second marriage marked the real start of their lifelong partnership, both as husband and wife and as creative partners. Carlo produced several of Sophia's most praised films, including Two Women in 1960, which won her the Academy Award for Best Actress, and Marriage Italian Style in 1964. Together, Sophia and Carlo created an artistic empire that represented the height of Italian elegance and style on the world stage. Their marriage, which lasted more than 40 years, was built on deep loyalty, mutual respect, and shared purpose. Unlike many Hollywood relationships that failed under the stress of fame, Sophia and Carlo's bond lasted through the decades. They raised two sons, Carlo Jr., who became an orchestra conductor, and Eduardo, who became a film director, both of whom continued their parents' creative legacy. Carlo Ponti passed away in 2007, leaving a gap in Sophia Loren's life that could never truly be filled. But Sophia has continued to honor his memory with grace, often speaking of him as the guiding influence behind her life's greatest successes. Their story remains a timeless example of how love can survive against all challenges. A romantic partnership built not only on passion, but on deep understanding, creative harmony, and constant commitment.
At 91 years old, Sophia Loren is one of the last surviving legends from Hollywood's golden age. Throughout her long and impressive career, she has acted with many of the greatest leading men of her time. But one name she has rarely discussed publicly is George Peppard. Only now in her later years does she feel ready to open up about their time together, sharing both the respect and the difficulties that came with working alongside such a complicated and interesting man. Why has she chosen to speak now? Perhaps it's the wisdom that comes with age, or maybe it's the desire to set the record straight about a man who was often misunderstood. George was a puzzle to me, Loren says quietly, her eyes distant as she recalls those days. He was good-looking and talented, but there was something in his eyes,
something troubled, something that needed to prove itself constantly. Loren remembered how she first met Peppard in the early 1960s, when both were at the peak of their careers. She was already an international star, known for her brilliant performances in Two Women, El Cid, and Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. Peppard, at the same time, had just achieved his breakthrough success in Breakfast at Tiffany's, making himself one of Hollywood's most promising new leading men. "We met at a dinner in Los Angeles," she recalled, a slight smile crossing her face. "He was silent at first, almost standoffish, but when he talked, his voice had real authority. I could tell he was a man who had struggled hard to be taken seriously." Loren described how Peppard had an old-style sense of masculinity that was both attractive and sometimes intimidating. He could be charming, she said, but he also had a certain pride, armor, you might say, that made it hard to really know him. This armor, she believed, was something he had built to protect himself from the harsh judgments and rejections he had faced earlier in his career. Their professional relationship, according to Loren, had respect but also tension. George was very focused on his work, she explained. He wanted everything to be perfect, every line, every movement. That kind of drive can be wonderful, but it can also be draining. He would sometimes get upset when things didn't go as planned, and I would just look at him and smile. I told him, "George, life isn't a war." He laughed, but I don't think he ever truly believed it. Loren's laughter at the memory carried some sadness, as if she were thinking about a man who never quite found peace within himself. He wanted respect, but he also kept people at a distance. That was his conflict. The Italian actress spoke openly about Peppard's reputation in Hollywood, his perfectionism, his stubbornness, and his sometimes difficult personality. He had a fire inside him, she said, and that fire shone brightly, but it also hurt him. She remembered how Peppard's disagreements with studios and co-stars eventually lost him many chances that could have made his career even bigger. He didn't always play by Hollywood's rules, Loren admitted. He wanted to be respected as an artist, not just a handsome face. I admired that. But in this business, you sometimes have to compromise a little, and George never wanted to compromise.
Still, Loren's tone was loving rather than judgmental. There was a kindness in him that people didn't always notice, she said, her voice warming at the memory. Between takes, he could be very gentle. He loved to discuss books, politics, and the meaning of life. He wasn't shallow. He had a mind that was always exploring, always asking questions. She recalls long conversations between scenes, where George would talk about the authors he admired, the social issues that concerned him, and his thoughts on the craft of acting. These moments revealed a depth that his tough exterior often concealed. Loren paused, her voice becoming softer. Sometimes I think he was too thoughtful for the world he lived in. Hollywood is a place that rewards charm more than depth. George had both, but he was never comfortable with the fake side of it all. Thinking about Peppard's later years, Loren became visibly sad. It made me upset to see how the industry abandoned him, she admitted. He deserved better. There was a time when he could have been one of the greats, like Brando or Newman, but things turned out differently. Loren added that Peppard's battles with alcohol and personal troubles seemed to come from the same restless energy that once made him so magnetic on screen. He wanted authenticity in everything, she said. But authenticity can be painful, and he carried that pain inside him. When asked what she would say to George Peppard today if he were still alive, Loren smiled sadly. "I would tell him that he was wonderful," she said softly. "That he didn't need to struggle so hard, that his talent was enough." After a long pause, she added quietly, "He was a good man, even when he didn't see it in himself." This simple statement carries profound weight, the recognition that George Peppard's greatest struggle was not with Hollywood, but with himself. Sophia Loren's thoughts on George Peppard offer a rare look into the humanity of two icons shaped by the same demanding world.
Her words, filled with wisdom and compassion, show not only her respect for Peppard as an artist, but also her understanding of the weakness behind his strength. "We came from different worlds," she concluded, "but I always understood him. Under the pride and the struggle, there was a man who simply wanted to be loved."
Sophia Loren's decision to speak about George Peppard after all these years is more than just sharing old memories. It's an act of kindness, a way of ensuring that the George Peppard she knew, the thoughtful, talented, troubled man, is remembered alongside the actor the world saw on screen. Her reflections remind us that behind every Hollywood legend is a real person with struggles, insecurities, and dreams. George Peppard may not have achieved all the success he deserved, but through Sophia's words, we can see him more clearly now. Not as a difficult actor or a faded star, but as a complex human being trying to find his place in an often unforgiving world. George Peppard passed away in 1994, but through Sophia Loren's words, he lives on in our memory. Not just as the actor from Breakfast at Tiffany's or the A-Team, but as a man who sought authenticity in everything, who fought for his artistic vision, and who, despite his struggles, touched the lives of those who truly knew him. Sophia Loren's revelations about George Peppard give us a precious glimpse into Hollywood's golden age, a time when legends walked among us and actors were navigating fame, art, and personal demons. Her story is ultimately one of compassion and understanding. It reminds us that success in Hollywood doesn't always equate to inner peace, that talent alone isn't enough to protect someone from their own struggles, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is simply to understand them. As we listen to Sophia's words, we're reminded that behind every iconic performance, every legendary career, there's a real person with a real story. George Peppard's story, as told through Sophia Loren's eyes, is one of talent unfulfilled, potential unrealized, but also of a man who refused to compromise his artistic integrity even when it cost him dearly. In sharing this story, Sophia Loren has given George Peppard something he perhaps never fully received during his lifetime: complete understanding and unconditional compassion. And in doing so, she reminds us all of the importance of looking beyond the surface, of understanding the struggles others face, and of offering kindness to those who are fighting battles we cannot see. What do you think about Sophia Loren's revelations? Did George Peppard deserve better from Hollywood? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on these two incredible legends. If you enjoyed learning about this hidden chapter of Hollywood history, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more untold stories about cinema's greatest stars. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our next deep dive into the lives of Hollywood's legends. Thank you for watching, and remember, behind every legend is a story worth telling.